Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Today is Monday, so we're doing one of our story videos, and today is where our story gets kind of intense and some crazy stuff happens. So this is a story that I'm not personally very proud of. It actually equates to the worst thing that I've ever done in my life. And that is that over 4 years ago, my boyfriend at the time and I decided that we were going to break into my mother's house and rob her, basically. We came up with this idea, and I've been doing a lot of reflecting around this and trying to figure out why I chose to do this, why I decided that that was something that I wanted to do, and I'm really still very unclear about where my head was during this whole process. But it's something that happened, and it's something that we're talking about. So basically, my boyfriend and I decided that we were going to do this, and I gave him basically the rundown on what was in the house and where everything was. And we parked at a grocery store nearby my mom's house. I mean, it was like really close to her house. And during a time that she was at work, he went in. I stayed in the car. But I'm just as guilty of this because I was 100% part of this plan. I stayed in the car while he got into her house and stole a bunch of stuff from her. I think we pretty much took mostly everything that meant anything to her, and it was a devastating experience for her. And at the time, I think she had an idea that I was part of it, but of course I denied it. Now it's obviously out in the open. We're talking to you guys about it, but it was a really terrible thing that I did. It's actually the worst thing that I've ever done. Something I'm extremely not proud of, but it's part of the reality of our story, and so we're talking about it. It did a lot of damage to my mom. She has suffered a lot of, I think, of anxiety around that experience. She was scared living alone for a long time after that, and it wasn't until, I don't know, a year ago maybe not even that long ago, that I actually ever even said something about it and admitted guilt towards it. An entire investigation went into it with the police and everything, but there wasn't any proof to tie any specific person to the actual crime. So, yeah, there was never any court punishment for it. But I can tell you in my heart I have been punished, and it was a terrible thing that I did, and something that I have had to do a lot of thinking and reflecting on. And luckily now it's something that's in our past and that my mom and I have gone through and gotten through and have talked through together. It definitely is the very worst thing I've ever done. So this video is kind of a hard one to make because this is where things start getting like really crazy, and a lot of the things that I'm not most proud of happened. But yes, she had to come home from work to a broken back door. A brick had been thrown into it. It was a glass door, and that was how the house was entered, and had to show up at home where all of her stuff was gone, all of it. So yeah, it was a terrible thing to do. Like I said, not something I'm extremely not proud of. But luckily I have a great relationship with my mom now. She was able to forgive me, and we were able to move through it. So I guess this kind of is just a testament to how far down, like how crazy things can get, and how you can really lose yourself in the midst of your drug abuse. And you don't make decisions based on who you actually really are inside. and you're only thinking about what you can gain or what you can get out of things, and that's really a sad thing. So that's that story. Thank you guys so much for watching. My mom's up next. Her perspective, of course, on this specific situation is very important. So she's up next. Take a listen. Thank you guys. Bye.
Hi, I'm Ann, Anna's mom. Thanks again for joining us on this journey. It's really great to be back. So, we continue the story today, and this one's a little bit harder for me to tell, so bear with me. I'm going to do my best, but we really want to share the whole story with you all in the hopes that if we have information that can help understanding where Anna's been and our family's been, will hopefully help you relate to us and understand that pretty much whatever's going on with you in your family, in your life, that it can be overcome. So here we go. It's January. The last time I saw Anna, she came by for Christmas. She was very, very, very skinny, very thin, very unhealthy. I was really worried about her. She wasn't very present either. I think she was doing a lot of meth at the time, but she did come over for a little while and I saw her. I honestly didn't know whether I'd see her again after that. There were a lot of people overdosing, and she was tiny. She was a sliver of herself. So I lived right in town, downtown in the little town where we live, and I had a weight loss clinic that I owned and ran that was just a few blocks down the road. So this one day in January, regular weekday, I was at work and I came home for lunch, which I did quite often. And as soon as I opened my door from my driveway going into the kitchen, I could look into my office area, which was kind of connected to my living room. It was a big open area, and I could see that something was wrong. There was stuff everywhere. I had cabinets up on the walls. They were full of cabinets with shelves, and I had storage bins in there with old documents and tax returns and things like that, my passport, things like that. And there was paper everywhere. As I investigated further and went in the house and walked down the hallway, it was just a small house with 2 bedrooms there. I knew for sure I'd been broken into. The guest bedroom had a French door going outside, a glass door, and it was broken. There was a brick inside the room, so somebody had thrown a brick through it. That room hadn't been touched, which was kind of weird. But my bedroom, right across the hall from it, was pretty destroyed. I had a big jewelry tree type thing that I had lots of jewelry hanging off of up on my dresser, and a jewelry box, an old-fashioned old leather jewelry box from the 50s that had been my mom's that she'd given me, full of jewelry. I used to sell jewelry, and I'd collected quite a bit throughout the years. And all of my keepsakes too were, some of them were in the jewelry box, like my dad's rosary that I got when he passed away several years before, and his St. Christopher medals, and the rosary that my aunt, Sister Mary Paul, had given me when I was baptized, and things that just couldn't be replaced. The first necklace I bought myself, the first piece of good jewelry I bought myself with my commission check from selling jewelry back in the 80s, things like that. All of that was gone. The jewelry box was still there. The jewelry tree was gone. The jewelry box was put back up on my dresser. It was the only thing in the room that was where it was supposed to be. My clothes were taken down. My closet was completely trashed. My bed had been moved underneath my bed. I used it as storage. All those bins were out. Everything was all over the place. But on my dresser was that old-fashioned leather jewelry box, and the only thing that was still in it was a pair of little girl glasses that were Anna's when she was in first grade. her first pair of glasses that she had, and didn't need anymore. And they were always a little keepsake for me. They were the only thing in that thing, sitting right in the middle. And then the office was trashed, and I walked into my living room, and it was fine. There wasn't anything. The TV was still there. The DVD player was still there. But I had a cabinet, a china cabinet in my dining room, and there was one drawer in there that was open, and that is where I had kept my checkbooks. So I lived by myself, and I had always felt safe before that. But I was very shaken. I was on the phone with my dear, dear friend, Hazel, at the time when I was walking into the house. She and I sometimes worked together. She sometimes worked with me at that point, and I was just talking with her about work, and I said, oh my God, I've been broken into. And she said, I'll be right there. And I got off the phone with her as I was walking around the house and looking at what looked like devastation. There's glass everywhere, there's papers everywhere, there's clothes, there's remnants in my drawers. All of my drawers have been pulled out of my dresser, all of my drawers have been pulled out of my nightstands, everything's just been dumped. So I called the police, obviously, and they came out right away, and the officer said what I had thought. He said, this was done by somebody who knows you. I said, yeah, because they only touched the cabinet where I kept my financial documents. And only the drawer in the china cabinet was open, the one at that point. There was more stuff missing, but I didn't know that yet. And they didn't touch the other bedroom. I immediately thought that Anna had something to do with it. And I felt terrible. Was also missing a 12-gauge shotgun and a small .22 pistol. And the 12-gauge shotgun I just bought about 2 weeks prior and spent a pretty penny on, because I watched some big tall guy I didn't know try and get into my house right after I left. I saw him waiting on the street corner, and as soon as I drove down the road, he went over and tried to get in my door. And I recognized him as somebody, or I thought to be somebody, that had been hanging around with Anna. And I didn't feel safe in that house. And prior to that, there had been a couple of times where the police literally chased somebody through my yard, and one time the SWAT team caught somebody evading arrest right behind my house. So the neighborhood was starting to turn because of the drug problem in North Bend. And I was right in the middle of that action. So there I was with no guns, and my keepsakes gone, and my jewelry gone, of which I used to wear a lot and really appreciate. But some things I couldn't replace. And I thought Anna had done it. I really believe that she and her boyfriend were responsible for that. And I felt terribly guilty for thinking that. But I also believed it to be true. I mean, it was true. It was absolutely true. Anna called me later the next day and said that she'd heard I'd been broken into and that my guns were stolen. And I'd only told one person about the second gun that I had. Everybody knew about my 12-gauge shotgun because I was excited to buy it. I wasn't excited to own a gun. I was just excited to feel safe in my home. And that thing made me feel safe. But I hadn't told anybody about the .22 pistol except for the officer who responded. And she wanted to know what kind of guns I had. And so that was more confirmation for me, because the only way she would have known about that is if she'd been involved. I was very lucky to have several friends show up right away. Hazel came, and her wonderful husband, John, came, and my friends, Jill and Karen, they all showed up at my house. Everybody came, a few other friends. They brought me some jewelry to wear because I really loved my jewelry. Brought me a gun to have so I could try and feel safe. And while I sat there and shook and cried and tried to make sense of what had just happened, they cleaned up the mess and the broken glass and nailed a board over the door and sat with me. But since then, I haven't felt safe if I'm at home alone. And that seems rather silly. Knowing, I know now what happened, and I get it, and I've known for a long time that I haven't been in actually any danger. I moved out of that house the first opportunity I got, less than a year later, but it never felt safe again, and I still to this day have a hard time when I'm home alone. I have a very hard time being home alone at night. But the worst part of it all was thinking, what if I was wrong? What if I was wrong about Anna being involved, and I believe she was? I kept trying to not believe that she was because of what had happened before, when that counselor had convinced us that she wasn't really molested by her step-grandpa. And she was. I really didn't want to put blame on her that didn't need to go there. I didn't want to put blame on her at all. I never thought that being burglarized was such a serious thing. I always knew it was terrible and it's devastating to lose things that are keepsakes, and yeah, I get that you don't feel the same in your house again, but until it happened to me, I didn't understand it. What a terrible, violating experience it is. And when it happens at the hands of your own daughter, or at least with her involvement, it's a really big blow. It's a really big blow. And it really took some time. It really took some time to not just be really, really, really angry with her and to see it differently. It took some time to get to a point where I could recognize that that was the demon that was on her back. That was the demon that was on her back. That was the drug addiction talking. It wasn't my daughter. My daughter did it, but if she was okay in herself, she never would have done anything like that to hurt me. But that was really hard for a long time. I ended up, getting a check from my insurance company, of course, which was good. I mean, that was good, and I did end up later in our story getting some of my most important valuables back. But I didn't know that was going to happen. I thought they were all gone for several years, actually. So we'll end today's story here, my part of it. Thank you for listening. Be sure and stay tuned for next week's story, though, because that was pretty dramatic. It's a pretty dramatic one. And next week we'll be talking about the event that changed everything for Anna. For a lot of people, actually. So, thank you so much for your support and for watching. We'll see you next week.